Your position is being eliminated effective immediately. Melissa Bradford said it at 8:47 a.m. over Zoom with her camera off. Just a black square with her initials where her face should have been. I'm Andrew Pierce, 52 years old, and the CEO's 34-year-old daughter just fired me without showing her face. There was supposed to be an envelope on the conference room table, cream-colored, sealed. I'd walked in at 8:45 expecting our weekly systems review. Same room, same time, same burnt coffee in the break room, but nobody else showed up, just me and my laptop. Then the Zoom ping, meeting request from Melissa Bradford. I should have known right there. She had a Wharton MBA and about zero understanding of what we actually built. 3 months at the company, promoted to Chief Innovation Officer because she was Thomas Bradford's daughter. The CEO's golden child, here to modernize our approach. Last month she asked in a product meeting if we could add AI to make RaviX predict user emotions. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. When I explained that infrastructure security systems don't need to detect feelings, they need to detect threats, she made a note on her laptop. I saw the screen. Andrew resistant to innovation. 2 weeks ago, she pitched RaviX to Series D investors as Spotify for infrastructure. Owen Walsh, one of the engineers I'd trained, had to leave the room because he was laughing. Now here she was on Zoom, camera off, with another black square labeled HR. We're restructuring some of our legacy roles, Melissa continued. Her voice was steady, practiced, like she'd rehearsed this in front of a mirror. And unfortunately, your position is being eliminated. You'll find your severance details in the envelope on the conference room table. Legacy roles. I built the RAVX system this entire company ran on. Designed the architecture, wrote the core protocols, debugged it at 3 a.m. when Series B funding almost fell through. 23 years here. First engineer hired after Series A. I'd trained half the people who now outranked me. And I was legacy. This isn't a reflection of your contributions, the HR voice added. Female, scripted, uncomfortable. We appreciate everything you've brought to Strivara over the years. I looked at that envelope sitting on the polished table. Didn't touch it. Where's Thomas? I asked. Pause. Half a second too long. He's in strategy meetings this morning, Melissa said, but he wanted me to personally handle this transition. Right. The CEO couldn't be bothered to fire his longest-serving engineer himself. Sent his daughter to do it over Zoom with her camera off. There was supposed to be a third camera square. General counsel. I'd been told he'd be on this call. His square stayed black the whole time. Coward probably knew this was a lawsuit waiting to happen and wanted distance. Is there anything else we need to address? HR asked. I thought about saying something, about how Melissa announced the InnovateX rebrand at TechCrunch Disrupt last month without telling engineering. New logo, new website, press release. She'd renamed my entire system, and I found out from Twitter about how she had no idea what RaviX actually did or why it mattered, but I didn't say any of that. No, I said, we're done here. I closed the laptop, picked up the envelope. My hands were steadier than I expected. Walking out, I passed Owen Walsh's desk. He was 29, systems engineer, one of the good ones. I'd mentored him for 4 years, taught him everything about RaviX architecture. He looked up, saw my face, saw the envelope. Andrew, he said quietly. They're restructuring legacy roles, I told him. He just stared. He knew exactly what that meant. The parking garage smelled like concrete and exhaust. 3rd floor, same spot I'd parked in for 23 years when I could get it. My car was a 2018 sedan, nothing fancy, paid off 2 years ago. Smelled like coffee and that leather cleaner my ex-wife used to buy before the divorce 8 years back. I sat there for maybe 15 minutes. Didn't open the envelope, didn't need to. I knew what severance packages looked like, but here's what they didn't know. And I mean they really didn't know. 10 years ago, I was sitting in my father's home office. He'd just died. Heart attack at 68. No warning. Just gone. He was a patent attorney, worked IP law for 40 years, sharp until the very end. I was 42 then, and RaviX was just hitting functional stability. I'd been working on it nights and weekends before Strivara even knew what it could become. Version 0.9 Alpha, the core architecture that everything else got built on, that was mine before I signed any full-time employment contract. My father knew that. He understood how these things worked. 3 days before he died, he left me a voicemail. I'd saved it. Still had it. Sometimes I played it on bad days. Andrew. His voice was scratchy, tired. He'd been working late on a case. Whatever you're building at that startup, don't give them ownership before they earn your trust. I watched them erase my name from a patent I drafted for 3 years at Morrison & Fields. Took me 6 months in court to get it back. Set up an LLC. File the provisional patent yourself. You can license it to them later, but keep the signature yours. Corporate loyalty goes one direction until it doesn't. Trust me on this, son. I must have listened to that message 20 times the week after he died. Then I did exactly what he said. Sat in his office, surrounded by his law books and those old wooden file cabinets, and I filed the paperwork. Pierce Technical Solutions, LLC. Registered in Delaware. RAVX core system, version 0.9 alpha. Full architecture and encryption protocols. Owner and architect, Andrew Pierce. That was 6 weeks before Stravara made me their full-time offer. Before any employment IP agreements. Before any of the contracts they thought gave them control. I'd licensed RAVX to Stravara under specific terms. Their legal team skimmed it, saw my signature, filed it away under employee inventions, and never looked at the dates. They assumed employment contract covered everything. Nobody checked that version 0.9 was filed before I was technically their employee. But I'd buried something in that licensing agreement. 2 clauses. Clause 11.3 said no licensing rights, no derivative works, no transfers could happen without written approval from the original architect. That was me. Clause 8.2 said no system renaming or rebranding without original architect approval. Melissa had just announced InnovateX at a public tech conference last month. New name, new branding, press release, the whole show. She'd breached Clause 8.2 without even knowing it existed, and now they'd fired me. I started the car, drove home, made coffee, and I waited. Because incompetence always reveals itself. You just have to give it time. The email came 3 days later. Wednesday morning, 9:23 a.m. I was drinking coffee on my couch, still in sweatpants, trying to figure out what retirement at 52 actually looked like. Subject line, request for confidential conversation. Sender, Richard Quinn, CTO of Virilia Tech. I stared at that name for a solid minute before opening it. Virilia was Stravara's oldest competitor. We'd gone head-to-head on federal contracts for years, tracked each other's patents, built entire product strategies around outmaneuvering them. In public, we pretended they didn't exist. In private, every engineering decision considered what Virilia might do next. And now their CTO was in my inbox. I clicked it open. Mr. Pierce, we have reason to believe you, not Stravara, hold the underlying rights to the RAVX core architecture. If this is accurate, we'd like to discuss an exclusive licensing agreement. We believe the original architect should decide where his work goes next. Would you be open to a conversation? This can be handled with complete discretion. Richard Quinn Direct. Professional. No games. I read it twice. Then I stood up and walked to my window. My apartment overlooked a parking lot and some trees. Nothing special. Paid for by 23 years of salary and stock options that vested slowly. The belief that loyalty mattered and hard work got rewarded. Turns out loyalty is just another word for convenient when you're dealing with people like Melissa Bradford. But this email was different. They'd done their homework. They knew something Stravara's legal team apparently never bothered to check. How did you know? I typed back. His response came in under an hour. We track all RAVX-related patents as part of competitive intelligence. When we saw Pierce Technical Solutions owned the core filing, not Stravara Corporate, we did the math. Your signature, your LLC, filed before your employment start date. We've been waiting to see if you knew. Smart, patient, the kind of operation that actually read the fine print. I typed one line. If we're talking, we do it in person. He replied in 20 minutes. Meeting set for Monday. His office. He'd fly me out, cover everything, keep it quiet. I said yes. That weekend, I did something I hadn't done in years. Pulled out all the original files. The provisional patent filing from my father's office. The LLC registration for Pierce Technical Solutions. The licensing agreement I'd signed with Stravara back in 2015, when they were too excited about Series B funding to examine the details. I went through every page, every clause, every date. It was all still there. Clean, legal, ironclad. Stravara thought they owned RAVX because I built it while employed. Standard assumption. but employment doesn't override prior art. Version 0.9 alpha was mine before they hired me full-time. Everything after that was licensed to them, not transferred, not sold, licensed. And Melissa's Innovate X rebrand at TechCrunch Disrupt, public announcement, new branding, press release. That triggered Clause 8.2, breach of contract. Every licensing agreement tied to RaviX could be challenged now. They'd fired the architect and breached the contract in the same month. Monday morning, I flew out. Virilia's office was in a different city, cleaner than Stravara's flashy headquarters. Less glass and steel, more function. The kind of building designed for people who knew what they were doing, not people trying to prove it. Richard Quinn met me in the lobby. 58 years old, looked like someone who'd spent 25 years actually building systems instead of managing people who built systems. Firm handshake, direct eye contact. "Andrew," he said, "thanks for coming." "You said you did your homework," I replied. "Show me." He took me to a conference room. Glass walls, no theater, just a table and chairs. He opened a folder. Inside was a complete breakdown. My LLC filing, the original RAVX provisional patent. A timeline showing version 0.9 alpha was submitted 6 weeks before my Stravara employment contract. Clause 11.3 and Clause 8.2 highlighted in yellow. "You're the owner," he said simply. "Not them. We'd like to work with you, not around you." He slid another document across the table. Exclusive licensing agreement, $740 million over 10 years. Role: Chief Technical Architect with full approval rights on any derivative works. Office, team, resources, everything. "We don't hire pedigrees," Richard said. "We hire architects." I read through it, every clause, every term. My father taught me that. Read everything twice. Trust nothing you don't verify. It was clean, fair, more than fair. I looked up at Richard. He wasn't smiling, wasn't selling, just waiting. "What happens to Stravara?" I asked. "That depends on them," he said. "If they try to expand RAVX deployment or license it to anyone else, they'll hit your clauses. Their lawyers will figure it out eventually. But that's not your problem anymore." He was right, it wasn't. I stared at that contract for 30 seconds. 23 years at Stravara. I'd trained half their engineers, built the infrastructure from nothing, stayed through 4 rounds of layoffs, declined 2 CTO offers from other companies because I believed in loyalty, and they fired me over Zoom with the camera off. "Take your time," Richard said, "but that company died the day Melissa renamed my work without asking. The only question was whether I'd let her bury it too." I signed it, right there, one signature, clean and final. "We're announcing this Friday," Richard said. "Press release. You're listed as creator and chief architect of RAVX. Your name, not theirs. If that's going to cause problems, tell me now." "No problems," I said. We shook hands. Professional, no celebration, just business. I flew home that afternoon. Didn't tell anyone. Didn't post anything. Just waited. Wednesday morning, I was making breakfast when Owen texted me. "Dude, Stravara's homepage just changed. The Innovate X banner is gone. Just disappeared. Legal sent out an urgent memo about full audit of all RAVX licensing agreements." "What's happening?" I smiled. Took a sip of coffee. "Maybe they're finally reading the contracts," I typed back. Thursday, another text from Owen, screenshot attached, internal email from Stravara's general counsel to executive team. Subject line in red, critical IP ownership review, immediate action required. Friday morning, Virilia's press release went live. Virilia Tech partners with Andrew Pierce, creator of RAVX Core Architecture. It hit every tech blog by 10 a.m., every industry newsletter by noon. LinkedIn was on fire by 2 p.m. My phone started buzzing. Former colleagues, people I hadn't heard from in 5 years, all asking the same question. Did Stravara really not own RAVX? I didn't answer most of them, but the walls were cracking now, and they were just starting to understand why. The audio file came through Saturday morning. Owen sent it with no message, just an attachment. File name, exec meeting recording.mp3. I was still in bed when my phone buzzed. Sat up, grabbed my coffee from the nightstand and hit play. Static first, chairs scraping, someone adjusting a microphone. Then Melissa's voice, higher pitched than usual. Panicked. Wait, he used a different entity name? Pierce Technical Solutions? When was this filed? Thomas Bradford. Her father, the CEO. His voice was tight, controlled. 10 years ago. The provisional filing predates his full-time employment contract by 6 weeks. Silence. Long enough that I thought the recording cut out. So we don't own RAVIX. A third voice. Male. Board member, probably. Not the core system, Thomas said. We have secondary rights through a derivative licensing agreement he granted us in 2015. But those rights are contingent on compliance with the original terms. Which terms? Melissa asked. Her voice was shaking now. All of them, including Clause 8.2, no system renaming or rebranding without original architect approval. Someone typing. Fast, frantic clicking. The Innovate X rebrand. Melissa's voice dropped to almost a whisper. At TechCrunch Disrupt. That violated it. Yes. Who approved legal on that rebrand? Who checked the original licensing agreement? Her voice was climbing now, losing control. Nobody answered. This is fixable, right? Melissa again, desperate. We contact him, we negotiate, we offer him equity, we offer him whatever he wants. He already negotiated, Thomas said flatly, with Verilia. $740 million exclusive licensing deal. It went public yesterday. The silence after that lasted 15 seconds. Felt like an hour. He went to our competitor. Melissa's voice was barely audible now. Because we fired him. Because you fired him, someone corrected. Sharp, angry, without consulting legal, without checking IP ownership, without any due diligence whatsoever. I had HR on the call, Melissa said weakly. HR isn't legal counsel, the voice shot back. And where was general counsel? He was supposed to be on that termination call. His camera stayed off, someone else muttered. He knew this was coming. The recording cut off there. I sat there holding my phone. Coffee had gone cold. I wasn't angry anymore. Wasn't even satisfied exactly. It was more like watching a building collapse in slow motion when you're the only one who saw the crack in the foundation years ago. They'd fired Andrew Pierce, the employee. They never owned Andrew Pierce, the architect. Monday morning, the lawsuits started. First one hit at 9 a.m. Class action from a group of Series C investors. Complaint alleged material misrepresentation of core intellectual property ownership and investment disclosures. Second lawsuit came at 11 a.m. Series D lead investor. Same allegations, bigger numbers. Third lawsuit landed at 2 p.m. This one from a federal contractor who'd signed a $47 million RAVX deployment agreement 3 months ago. They wanted out. Contract invalidation based on Stravara's inability to guarantee IP ownership. The stock started dropping at market open. Down 19% in the first 3 hours. Trading got volatile but didn't halt. By close, down 28% for the day. Tuesday morning, worse. Down another 12% at open. By noon, the total drop hit 47% from Friday's close. $810 million market cap cut to $430 million in 4 trading days. My phone buzzed. Text from someone I knew. Greg Hutchins, partner at Hanley & Stewart Capital. We'd golfed twice. Nice guy, smart investor. Just pulled our Series D commitment. $67 million. Should have read the contracts, Andrew. Sorry it went down like this. I texted back. Not your fault. Due diligence is everyone's job. He replied with a thumbs up. Another text came in. From Owen. They just pulled Melissa from all external meetings. Board meeting happening right now. Thomas looks sick. I didn't respond to that one. Just watched. By Wednesday afternoon, the news was everywhere. TechCrunch, Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal. Stravara built on rented foundation was the headline everyone used, some variation of that same idea. The company's flagship product wasn't actually theirs. Melissa posted on LinkedIn Wednesday night. I saw it because someone forwarded it to me. Grateful for the opportunity to serve as strategic advisor going forward. Excited to support Stravara's next chapter from a different role. Strategic advisor, that's corporate speak, for we can't fire the CEO's daughter publicly, but she's never making another decision here. The comments were brutal, over 200 of them before she turned them off. Advisor to what? The lawsuit you caused? How do you rebrand a product you don't own? This is what happens when nepotism meets incompetence. I didn't comment, didn't like it, didn't share it. Just read it once and close the browser. Thursday morning, the announcement came. Thomas Bradford to step down as CEO, effective immediately. The press release said he wanted to spend more time with family. Pursue other interests. Standard exit language. But Owen sent me the leaked board minutes an hour later. The real language was different. Board vote of no confidence, 8-2. Resignation demanded due to loss of institutional investor confidence and failure to maintain adequate IP oversight. They'd forced him out. The man who built Stravara 28 years ago. Gone in 4 days because he let his daughter play executive and didn't read the contracts. Friday afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Mr. Pierce? A woman's voice. Professional. This is Jennifer Moss, Interim General Counsel at Stravara. Do you have a moment? I'm listening, I said. We'd like to discuss a potential settlement regarding the RAVX licensing situation. Would you be open to a confidential conversation? I looked out my apartment window. Same parking lot, same trees. But everything felt different now. Send it in writing, I said. My attorney will review it. Of course. Can I ask? I hung up. 2 hours later, the email came. Subject, settlement proposal, confidential. I opened it. Scanned the first paragraph. They wanted to negotiate continued use of RAVX under a new licensing agreement, offering equity, back pay, public acknowledgement, the works. I closed the email without reading the rest. Then I deleted it. Saturday morning, I flew back out to Verilia, not for a meeting, for my first day as Chief Technical Architect. The office felt different when you actually worked there. People nodded when I walked past. Respectful. Genuine. Richard Quinn met me at the elevator. Ready to build something that lasts? He asked. Let's see the lab, I said, and we got to work. The engineering lab at Verilia was on the 3rd floor. Richard took me down there my first morning. Rows of workstations, servers humming in climate-controlled racks, whiteboards covered in system diagrams. It looked like Stravara did 15 years ago, before the executives cared more about branding than building. Your team, Richard said, gesturing to a group of 6 engineers clustered around a workstation. They've been studying RAVX documentation for 3 weeks, getting familiar with the architecture, but they're waiting on you for the next phase. One of them stood up. Younger guy, maybe 27, nervous energy, reminded me of Owen when I first started training him. Mr. Pierce, he said, I've read your original provisional filing maybe 30 times. The encryption structure in version 0.9 alpha, that's still the cleanest implementation I've ever seen for infrastructure security. How did you know it would scale to federal deployments? I looked at him. Hungry to learn, respectful of the work, not the title. I didn't know it would scale, I told him. I built it to solve one problem correctly. Clean architecture, minimal dependencies, modular design. Scaling came later because the foundation was solid. That's the only way to build anything that lasts. He nodded slowly, absorbing that. Question, another engineer said. Woman, early 30s, senior systems lead according to her badge. What happens if Stravara tries to deploy RAVX updates under the InnovateX branding? Do we sue for breach? We don't have to, I said. Every contract they sign using that branding is invalid under Clause 8.2. Their clients will figure it out when the integration fails compliance checks. Federal systems require verified IP ownership for security clearances. When those checks fail, their clients will sue them. We don't need to do anything except keep building. Richard smiled at that. All right, let's get to work. The next month moved fast. Verilia announced RAVX integration partnerships with 3 federal agencies that Stravara had been competing for: Defense Infrastructure, Critical Systems Monitoring, Threat Detection Networks. We won all 3 contracts, not because we played dirty, because we had the actual architect and clean IP ownership. Federal procurement requires that. Stravara couldn't compete anymore. Owen texted me updates every few days. I didn't ask for them, but he sent them anyway. New CEO started today, some McKinsey guy. Nobody knows him. They're settling 2 of the investor lawsuits, undisclosed amounts, layoffs, 40% of engineering. They kept me but cut my team to 3 people. Melissa's not in the office anymore. Someone said she's doing an MBA speaking tour about lessons in leadership. No joke. I read them but rarely responded. That wasn't my world anymore. In late October, I got an email from Patricia Lowe. She was 61 now, my father's old law partner. She'd helped me set up Pierce Technical Solutions a decade ago when I was sitting in his office trying to figure out what to do with his advice. Your father would be proud, she wrote. He always said the best contract is the one they don't know they signed until it matters. You learned that lesson well. Coffee sometime? I replied. Coffee sounds good. And thank you. For everything back then. She'd never charged me for setting up that LLC, said it was the last favor she could do for my father. Turned out to be worth $740 million. November came. I got invited to speak at the National Infrastructure Tech Summit in Dallas. Big conference, 3,000 attendees, companies from across the defense and infrastructure sectors. Panel discussion on IP protection and system architecture. I almost said no. Public speaking wasn't my thing, but Richard convinced me. They need to hear from you, he said, not about the lawsuit drama, about how to build systems the right way. That's what matters. So I went. The panel was on the main stage. 4 seats, 4 nameplates. When I sat down, I looked at mine. Andrew Pierce, creator, RAVEX core system, not former Stravara engineer. Not consultant. Creator. The moderator asked good questions. How do you balance security and scalability? What's the future of infrastructure AI? How do you protect innovation in competitive markets? I answered honestly. Talked about modular design, about building for 10 years out instead of 10 months, about reading your contracts and understanding what you're signing. After the panel, there was a line. Maybe 30 people waiting to ask questions, hand me business cards, pitch their startups. I talked to most of them, gave advice when I could. Near the end, a young guy stepped up, maybe 28, engineer badge from some startup I didn't recognize. Mr. Pierce, he said, I heard what happened with Stravara, the whole thing. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. How did you know to protect yourself 10 years ago? Like, what made you think you needed to file that LLC and keep the IP separate? I thought about my father's voicemail, about sitting in his office after he died surrounded by 40 years of legal files and patent disputes, about the lesson he'd learned the hard way and passed down to me. I didn't protect myself, I told him. I protected my work. There's a difference. Your employer can fire you, your title can disappear, your office can get cleaned out, but your signature on the right document, that's yours. Nobody can take that unless you let them. He wrote that down in his phone, word for word. So you always knew you might get fired? No, I said. I thought loyalty mattered. I thought 23 years of showing up and building something real would count for something. But my father taught me to hope for the best and plan for the worst. Turns out he was right. The kid nodded. Thank you. Seriously. He walked away. I watched him go, hoping he'd remember that conversation when it mattered. Walking out of the convention center that night, my phone buzzed. Email notification. Subject. Settlement offer. Final proposal. Confidential from Stravara's legal team. Third one they'd sent. I didn't open it, just deleted it and kept walking. 6 months later, Verilia announced a $890 million federal contract. Largest infrastructure security deployment in Department of Defense history. RAVEX at the core of it. My architecture, my protocols, my signature on every technical specification. The press release listed me as Chief Technical Architect and Creator. Owen texted me that afternoon. Saw the announcement. That's incredible, man. Congrats. Thanks, I replied. How are things there? Honestly? Quiet. Stravara's just a smaller company now. We do maintenance contracts mostly. Nothing new. I'm looking around. Send it. Me. Your resume, I typed. We're hiring. He sent it 10 minutes later. I forwarded it to Richard with one line. Best systems engineer I ever trained. Loyal, smart, and he knows when to record the important meetings. Richard replied, bring him in. That evening, I sat on my couch with a beer and my father's old voicemail pulled up on my phone. I hadn't listened to it in months. I hit play. Corporate loyalty goes one direction until it doesn't. Trust me on this, son. I did trust him. And he was right. They fired the employee. They never owned the architect. And now, everyone knew it.